Palestinian medics report dozens more civilian deaths in Gaza as a Hamas delegation goes to Egypt to discuss a possible ceasefire with Israel. The European Union calls an emergency meeting to discuss the gas dispute between Russia and Ukraine. Hello and welcome to this news update on CCTV International. I'm Tony Perkins. The Israeli armed forces have continued their military operations in Gaza for the 10th consecutive day. Palestinian residents from the northern section of the Gaza Strip have begun to leave their homes and seek shelter in Gaza City. Lee Xiong has more.
Israeli forces have pounded Gaza homes, mosques and tunnels from the air, land and sea. Gaza medics have reported that at least 24 people were killed on Monday, all of them civilians. Hamas has called the offensive a Holocaust and urged its fighters to crush Israeli forces who have invaded the territory.
It's a war from one side. It's not fair to describe it that it's a war. It is aggression from the occupation against people who are surrounded, who are besieged, who are isolated since more than 1 year.
Meanwhile, refugee families have traveled to Gaza City where they are being placed in school classrooms. A refugee said that the Israeli army has repeatedly attacked civilians in the northern Gaza Strip.
The Israeli army has no mercy. It is targeting anyone who moves. They are firing missiles at our homes, at the homes of residents. They are saying that they are not targeting civilians, but they are lying.
The coastal strip is said to have been cut in two by Israeli forces. A Red Cross aid worker has said that this has severely affected the efforts of the medical staff.
The teams, the medical staff, the surgeons are extremely tired because they are working around the clock. It's not easy to bring more staff nowadays following the land operation of the Israeli forces, as Gaza was cut into two halves and the staff from Rafah, from the south of Gaza, cannot cross to the north.
Latest reports have brought the death toll in the Gaza Strip to more than 520 since December the 27th. Lee Xiong, CCTV.
Israeli government spokesman Mark Regev says Israel is trying to relieve the situation for Gaza's population by allowing in humanitarian aid. Israel has intensified its long, crushing blockade of Gaza, preventing vital food, fuel, and medical aid from crossing the border. But now it is allowing 80 truckloads of supplies to finally get through. On Monday, Israeli President Shimon Peres visited wounded soldiers hospitalized in Beersheba and blamed Hamas for the situation.
Israel left Gaza willingly. We don't intend to reoccupy Gaza. Israel made a supreme effort to dismantle settlements, and no Israeli was left in Gaza. That's what makes the whole story so strange and unbelievable. The Hamas doesn't have the slightest reason for the shooting of Qassams against Israel.
The humanitarian crisis has become ever more serious in Gaza, and the international community is stepping up calls for a ceasefire. Andrew Dupuy has that story.
A high-level EU delegation has met with Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. The delegates, who include EU Foreign Policy Chief Xavier Solana and the foreign ministers of France, the Czech Republic and Sweden, have stressed their hopes that Israel and Hamas will agree to a ceasefire.
We would like very much to obtain a ceasefire, the sooner the better. And on that direction we're going to keep on working. And the cooperation with Egypt is going to be fundamental.
European External Relations Commissioner Benita Ferrero-Waldner has expressed deep concern for the residents of Gaza.
We will try to do everything to get aid to the population. We know fuel, food, water, wheat, all that is missing.
The EU delegation is expected to visit the West Bank and Israel during a 3-day tour of the area. Meanwhile, a convoy of trucks carrying aid was filmed waiting at Israel's border with Gaza. The vehicles were carrying food staples, including flour. Trucks carrying fuel aid to desperate Gazans also made their way towards the border crossing between Gaza and Israel. Andrew Dupuy, CCTV.
Hamas has sent a delegation to Cairo for talks with senior Egyptian security officials to discuss a possible ceasefire with Israel. A Hamas source says the talks were proposed by Egypt, but he did not say what issues would be discussed, nor would he say if the delegation would include Hamas leaders from Gaza or only Hamas leaders from Damascus. Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd is calling for a diplomatic solution to bring an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, protesters around the world continue to condemn Israel's military action. Lee Cheong has the details.
Rudd said his government recognizes Israel's right of self-defense, but supports a diplomatic solution to bring an immediate ceasefire.
Australia is deeply concerned by continued violence in Gaza and in southern Israel. Australia recognises Israel's right to self-defence, while we call on all parties to avoid any actions which result in unnecessary suffering or increased suffering on the part of innocent civilians.
Rudd also called on Israel to open border crossings into Gaza and ensure residents there have basic human rights. Those include access to food, medical supplies, and humanitarian assistance. Meanwhile, thousands of people rallied in cities across the U.S. on Sunday and protested against Israel's attacks. In Washington, D.C., protesters gathered outside the Capitol building and demanded that Congress call for an immediate ceasefire and for Israel to withdraw its ground troops from the Gaza Strip. They also urged Congress to allow humanitarian supplies and aid workers to enter Gaza. And demonstrators across Europe and Asia have marched and rallied to demand an end to the attacks. Li Chong, CCTV.
You're watching the news on CCTV International. Time for a short break, but please stay with us for more stories just ahead. The European Union calls an emergency meeting to discuss the gas dispute between Russia and Ukraine. And India delivers evidence to Pakistan that says links the Mumbai terrorist attacks to elements in Pakistan.